The motor's nice and warm, so in this episode we're going to adjust the valves. We're done with that. Going to check out the alternator. I think it's got a bad bearing. I'm not sure. It's making a lot of noise, driving me crazy. Also going to change the alternator belt while we're in there because, boy, that poor belt, I don't know what's happened to that. But let's get into it. And just as a complete aside, I adjusted the kickdown cable for this. The spec is 0.5 mil to 1.5 mil gap between the stop and the rubber. That 0.5 millimeter makes a huge difference in the downshifting. I was absolutely shocked. So if you got a slushy transmission in one of these, make sure you adjust that. All the difference in the world. I finally got everything off here, down to the valve cover. Take the valve cover off. Hopefully I have everything. Oh, don't lose that. Those are hard to come by. Would have been faster if I got a ratchet wrench, but I'll just sit here on the struggle bus and do it the hard way. This is where you find out everything else is in the way. Wiring harness, the heater hoses. Oh yeah, she's still hot. Let me get that out of the way. Ooh, she's kind of a coked up mess. This one did not get a lot of oil changes over the years. Those valves are loose. Yeah. Yep, they're loose. All right, now the hard part. I need to spin this over. And they don't make it easy on these. Since I don't have a 46 millimeter wrench, let's see if I can make one. Doesn't have to tighten the nut, it just has to spin the motor. Because it's really difficult to see on these. And oh, look at that, beautiful. There it is. So those are the teeth on your flywheel that the starter engages. And that is your indicator pin right there. So I need to spin this over and we'll see a BB. Believe it or not, there's a little BB for 7 degrees of timing, and then there's going to be a straight line, and that's going to be 0, top dead center. Then I have to come up here and make sure that I'm on the compression stroke, number 1 cylinder, top dead center, and then I can start adjusting my valves. But since I'm by myself, more or less here, because the cameraman is busy, we'll do that. And I made my custom little 46 millimeter wrench here out of 1/8 inch plate. And yeah, let's start spinning it over and see what we can get. There it is. There's the BB. A little bit farther, should be a line. So that BB you use to set your timing, and I believe that should be TDC. According to the book, the number 6 valves should be tight, which they are, so everything checks out there. And intake is 8 thousandths of an inch, and exhaust is 14 thousandths of an inch. So you just want to get that. So it just slides nicely. You're better off having your valves too loose, or your rockers too loose, technically, because that'll give you a greater chance of your valve sealing and seating. If it's too tight, you have the potential to keep your valve open a little bit, and that will not seal, and you can eventually burn a valve up. So what I'm doing now, I just did exhaust, intake. Now I'll do intake. I'll skip to the next one, exhaust, skip to the next one, intake, skip to the next one, exhaust. This way you can do 6 valve adjustments now rotate the motor 360 degrees, and then you can adjust the other 6. There we go, happy with that. Rinse, repeat. I'll do the other 3. Rotate the motor 360 degrees, and then we put it back together. Have some POR 15 cleaner here. Hot water, mixed it 4-to-1. This has become my favorite cleaner degreaser around the shop. I honestly use it for everything now. I like it better than brake clean. It's a little more work. It's not quite as obnoxious, and honestly, chlorinated solvents are not good for you. But this stuff just works great. You can dilute it down to 10-to-1, and believe it or not, that's what I do to mop the floor here because I get so much grease, and it works fantastic. But you definitely want to rinse it off afterwards. And if you let it sit for a little while, it really does get the grease off. So I'm going to clean this real quick. Glue on my gasket. While that's drying, I will put a couple of coats of paint on this. While that paint is drying, we'll go change the alternator. Change the alternator belt, because that's in really sad shape. Basically, I have the valve cover is all cleaned and prepped. What I'm going to do now is just take some RTV, fill in the corners here, and a little bit in the centers. This is just to hold the gasket in place for assembly. And that is it, because it's a little futzy to get the valve cover in there. And as you saw in the old gasket, they failed last time, and I'm assuming that is what our giant oil leak was down the side of the engine. I haven't seen Bob Ross in forever. All I remember is happy little clouds, happy little trees. Whoa, that's bright. Wow, that lays down fast. So while paint on valve cover is drying, I'm going to change the alternator, which is buried underneath the air pump. And it looks like it's just going to be easier to pull the air pump first. That looks like the wrong bracket. That does not look correct. Either that or somebody tried to tighten the belt up too much and they bent the bracket. Oh. Oh. They didn't even tighten up the main bolt. The nut's sitting down here in the motor mount. That is not the correct factory bolt, or nut, I mean. Some hackery has gone on here. Well, the bearing does not seem bad. It was charging and working fine. Has no play. Oh, look at that. It rubbed on the motor mount so hard it imprinted the casting number into the alternator. The replacement alternator that I got does not fit. These two ears are just too different to make it fit. Even though we've had a little impact there on the motor mount and embossed the alternator, it's not the bearings. It was just all the bracketry and everything had come loose and been bent. So it was charging and charging just fine. I'm going to put it back in and we're going to ship it and see how it does. So let's straighten the bracket out, and that gave me a lot more adjustment. Somebody was just trying to go tighter with a bad belt on it rather than changing the belt, so they just collapsed the whole bracket. And that, and the bottom pinch bolt being loose, kind of allowed the alternator to just flop around there and hit the motor mount. And I think that was the noise we were hearing. So tighten this all up and fingers crossed we'll be good to go. All right, saved you the tedium of putting this all back together. We got our valve adjustment done, got our new intake boot on, tightened up the alternator. So hopefully this will now be nice, quiet, and reliable. We'll hook up the battery here. We'll fire it up. Hopefully now it's going to be nice and quiet, not the rattle trap it was when we started. Let's see what we get. Oh, sounds good from here. High idle is looking good. I am entirely happy with what we have here. I think we've got a reliable vehicle again. In the next episode, we're going to start modifications and hopefully go wheeling. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. As always, thank you for watching.